Have you ever found yourself just scrolling, mindlessly scrolling, chasing that next little hit of something, anything? Well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive deep into the powerful little chemical in our brains that's driving this chase and explore how our super stimulated world might just be hijacking it. It's a really weird paradox, isn't it? You'd think the more pleasure you chase, the happier you'd be. But so often, it feels like it just slips further and further away. Turns out that feeling isn't some kind of personal failure. It's just biology. It's what we're calling the dopamine dilemma, and figuring it out is the first step to actually breaking free. All right, so what's really behind this whole thing? It's time to meet the star of our show, this tiny but unbelievably powerful molecule called dopamine. Now, a lot of people call it the pleasure chemical, but honestly, its real job is way more complex and, frankly, a lot more interesting than that.
So what is it exactly? Well, think of dopamine as your brain's ultimate motivation coach. It's that little voice that whispers, hey, you should go for it, whether it is a piece of chocolate cake, a notification on your phone, or, just the motivation to get out of bed. It's the chemical that fuels our desire. Okay, so to get how this works, picture this. Your brain cells are constantly playing a game of catch. One cell, the pitcher, winds up and throws a chemical message, that's the dopamine, across this tiny little gap. The other cell, the catcher, snags it. And just like that, a message about motivation or reward has been sent. It's happening billions of times a day inside your head. But here's the plot twist, and this changes everything. For the longest time, we thought dopamine was all about the pleasure of liking something. But new research shows it's actually much, much more about the motivation of wanting it. It's the anticipation, the craving, the engine of desire that makes us get up and go after that reward in the first place. So you have this incredibly powerful wanting system. How does our brain not just spin completely out of control? Well, it has this brilliant built-in mechanism for balance. Let me introduce you to the pleasure-pain seesaw. So just imagine your brain as this perfectly level seesaw inside. Every time you experience a little hit of pleasure, that bite of a burger, the ding of a new message, the seesaw tips over to the pleasure side. And the more intense that pleasure is, the more it tilts. But here's the thing. Our brains are obsessed with balance, a state called homeostasis. They hate being tilted for too long, so they have this secret weapon. The second that seesaw tips toward pleasure, the brain sends out this little team of imaginary gremlins that jump on the pain side. Their whole job is just to bring the seesaw back to level. But there's a catch. And that catch, my friends, is where our modern world just throws a giant wrench into the system. We are living in an ocean of dopamine triggers, a constant flood of things designed to tip our seesaw. And this is where that simple balancing act starts to break down and, well, we get trapped. This quote from Dr. Anna Lembke, who wrote the book we're drawing from, just nails it. She even shares her own story of getting hooked on romance novels. What started as a fun little escape slowly became this compulsive need until the pleasure she used to get from it just vanished. And that's the cruel logic of this loop. You stop chasing the high and start just desperately trying to feel normal again. And if you want to see why it's so hard to escape, just look at this chart of a rat's brain. When it sees a cue that a reward is coming, its dopamine skyrockets. But look what happens right after. It doesn't just go back to normal. It plummets, dipping way below the baseline. That right there is the feeling of craving. It's that awful, gnawing emptiness that makes us say, I need more. Okay, so it sounds pretty bleak, right? We're all trapped in this dopamine-driven loop. But here's the good news. There is a way out. And believe it or not, the secret isn't to find more pleasure. It's to embrace a totally radical idea, the incredible power of setting limits. One really powerful tool for this is something called a dopamine fast. Now, hold on. It's not what it sounds like. You're not trying to get rid of all the dopamine in your brain. That's literally impossible and you wouldn't want to. No, it's about taking a deliberate, scheduled break from your specific high dopamine triggers. It's giving your brain a chance to finally reset and letting those little gremlins on the pain side of the seesaw just go home for a while. So what are you supposed to do during this fast? Well, you get bored. And I know, in our world, that sounds like a punishment. But boredom isn't empty. It's actually a fertile ground. It's in those quiet moments, when we're not constantly being poked and prodded for a reaction, that we can actually hear ourselves think. It's how one student, Sophie, put it. She started noticing the trees again. All right, here's another game-changing strategy. It's called self-binding. This is where you get really honest with yourself and admit that, you know what, willpower isn't enough. It's a muscle that gets tired. So instead of just trying to resist temptation, you get smart and you physically create barriers between you and your bad habits. It's like making a deal with your future self to set them up for a win. And what does this actually look like? It's all about small, strategic moves. It's deleting that one app that you know is a total time suck. It's just not buying the junk food in the first place, so it's not in your house. It's creating a no phone rule in your bedroom. See, these aren't signs that you're weak. They're incredibly smart acts of self-preservation. You're protecting your most valuable asset, your own attention. And that, right there, leads us to the biggest paradox of all. In a world that screams that freedom is about having endless options, real freedom, it might actually be found in setting your own limits. By choosing what we say no to, we aren't trapping ourselves. We're liberating ourselves. We're taking back our focus, our time, and our ability to find real joy in the simple things. So I'll just leave you with this. What's one small boundary you can set today to start finding your own freedom?